cartoonists like Doonesbury are just 2 weeks ahead, which is really tight. But being 7 months ahead means if I want to do a strip where I comment on something, I've got to sub it in. So like I had a little tribute strip to Steve Jobs that I just did. So I had to sub that in, so that'll run in November. But even so, when I sub it in, I can only catch about 5 weeks out. So like I'd like it to run the next day, but I can't run it for 5 weeks. Which is always why when something happens in the news, and maybe an inappropriate strip of mine runs that coalesces with that in a bad way, and they think it's my fault. I can't stop it at that late of a date. So yeah, I had one where Rat was running for senator against a dead guy, just so he could win. On the day it started, a senator up for re-election died in a plane crash. I think
Wellstone. Paul Wellstone.
There you go. So,
oops.
Nothing I could do. It runs, and that's that. Yes, you.
What was the ending to the series where Michael Jackson loses his nose in the washer?
He's talking about a strip where I claim that in the last panel my syndicate deleted the punchline because it was too inappropriate. The truth is I deleted the punchline. My syndicate really doesn't stop me very often. It's happened, I think, only twice in 10 years. It's pretty rare. They're actually more lenient with me than maybe they should be. It's the editors of the newspapers that stop me. They're the ones who refuse to run certain strips. So, anyways, yes.
So what's the punchline?
There isn't one.
So you didn't have any ending?
No, I guess it's like a cop out.
You got lazy. All right.
Yes, over there. Yeah, he asked who my favorite character is. If I could write for one character over and over, it would be Rap. He's my most natural voice. But I think if I did it every day, you'd probably get tired of it because he's a little bit too acerbic, like too bitter, and he grates on you after a while. Just sort of like me. Yes, in the back.
Did you get to see any of the Peanut characters in St. Paul?
I did. Oh, I did a few cool things. So for those, maybe I would have talked about this, but I'll just say it now. When I quit being a lawyer, you'll learn more about this if we ever run this thing. When I quit being a lawyer, I didn't want to just quit wholesale and turn to the strip because I thought the strip could fail. So I wanted some backup. So I took a job a couple days a week at Schulz's studio in Santa Rosa, but not doing legal stuff. It was purely based on my knowledge of the strip. And they wanted me to look at licensing ideas that came in and say if they were consistent with the character. The Snoopy being like Snoopy should be, etc. So I worked for the Schulzes for 8 years, until just last year. And the job morphed over time until at the end I actually wrote the next Peanuts animated special, which is called Happiness is a Warm Blanket, Charlie Brown, that Warner Brothers produced. So I screw up the whole franchise. But anyway, so while I was here, I went to Sparky's boyhood home on McAllister and took pictures in front of it, and then I went to Rice Park or something, the one with the statues. That was very cool too. Yeah, it's pretty great. And I live next to where he lived in Santa Rosa. So, and Jeannie, his widow, is still there. So she's got this great big game room next to her house, and she tells me where she hides the key. So I can go up there with my kids, and we play. She has an indoor basketball court. So very cool. Yeah. So anyways, and I got to meet Sparky too. I might as well say this. I got to meet Sparky twice. Once in 1996 when I was a lawyer. I was so burned out that one day I just took a day off of work. And I drove north to Santa Rosa, which is an hour away from me. My wife grew up in Santa Rosa, so she knew where Sparky's Ice Arena was. And the only reason I did it was I read in a newspaper article that every day Sparky went to his ice arena that had a little cafe next to it, and he had an English muffin every single day. I sound like a stalker whenever you tell me that, which is kind of what I was. But anyway, so Stacy told me where the ice arena was, so I drove up there. And I get there at 7 in the morning, it's me and just a bunch of ice skaters, and there's nobody else in the cafe. And all of a sudden I realized I'm a big idiot because it was just based on one newspaper article, and maybe it wasn't true, or maybe Sparky was on vacation, or anything. So I was about to give up because I had waited for 45 minutes, and all of a sudden this guy, this big shock of white hair, walks in on the other side, and it's him. And for me, like, I was shaking. Like, I was about as nervous as I could ever be. And so I waited for him to stop eating. And then when he was done, I walked over from my side of the cafe. This is really awkward because it's a long room. Sparky's about where that wall is, and I'm over here, and there's no one else in between us. Just a bunch of figure skaters out on the ice. So when I get up to walk over, he sees me coming, so it's a little bit odd. So I walk over and I kneel at the side of the table, and I have the worst opening line in history, which was, "Hi Sparky, my name is Stephan Pastis, and I'm an attorney." And his face just went white because he thought he was getting served with a subpoena. So I said, no, I also draw a comic strip. And the minute I said that, he cleared everything off of the little chair next to him, and he said, "Sit down, let's talk." So we talked for an hour, and at the time I was not syndicated. I was just an amateur cartoonist, and Sparky gave me a whole hour, so it was really incredible. But then the other thing was, at the very end, when I signed with United in about January of 2000, Sparky died in February of 2000. We just overlapped by a month, and he used to put on an ice show every year at that place, and so I went to the ice show thinking I would just see it. There were some other cartoonists there, and lo and behold, Sparky comes out of the hospital that day, and he comes to the ice arena, and he's going to watch the show. And his daughter Jill, who doesn't know me from Adam, just gives me her tickets in the little booth with Sparky. So me and my wife and Jeannie, Sparky's wife, and Sparky watched this ice show together. And it was incredible. I always come close to crying when I say this. I'm going to say this fast. Sparky was crying like crazy. Like, some people say it was because of the stroke. He had had a series of strokes. And I didn't know him. He didn't remember our meetings. But I put my arm around him, like, what do you do? At that point, he was just a person. And but he was crying. My sense was he cried when they cheered, like at the sense of something being lost. I remember him telling me that. He felt like this was being taken from him. You know what I mean? And it was weird how he talked about the characters. He said, "Charlie Brown, that poor kid, will never get to kick the football." Like he was real, and he had let him down. And it was an amazing moment. And it was just purely timing, and we just overlapped. And so it's really meaningful for me to come here and see, the Sparky stuff. So, long answer. They'll be shorter now. Yes.
Yeah. Is there any? Do you have any interest in, or do you think we'll ever see an animated cartoon? I don't know, for Swine Christmas, perchance?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been around this block twice now. I'll just tell you one of the stories. This guy named Chris Meledandri, who did Despicable Me, he's the name you see above the title. It's Universal, sort of his studio, actually emailed me and said, "Can you come in? We'd like to do a movie." So I said, sure. So I went in, and you got to learn a lot about Hollywood. Like, it's people say things, and they don't mean them. And he's a really nice guy, but he told me all these things, and the thing I said over and over, I said, "I'd like to do a movie, but I have to be at least one of the writers. I don't have to be the only writer, but I have to be one, because I look at these characters as my kids. Like, I'm not going to hand them off to somebody else to care for." So he said, "Oh my gosh, your voice is the most important thing ever. It's going to be you, it's going to be you, it's going to be you." And then you go to negotiate with their business people, and the first thing they do is guarantee you nothing. You can write what's called a treatment, a little summary of the script, and they can take it, throw it in the garbage, and bring in their own writer. So I just stopped negotiating. For me, the money doesn't mean as much as the characters. Like, I'm not going to let somebody do that. So I'm very wary of Hollywood now. So yes.
Well, remember that strip where they lost all the A's in their script, and how one of the last ones in there, Brad said swear word was a day missing.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you really get past doing that?
That's funny. When I started out, and I don't know if I'm proud of this or ashamed, but when I started out, I took a lot more risks, and I don't know what happens. I think this would be an interesting study, but you kind of get co-opted over time. For one thing, you're in more newspapers. You're in a lot more newspapers, so the syndicate makes a lot more money off of you. So you're all a little more careful, because you're in places you haven't been before, and you don't want to offend people. So in the beginning, I took a lot of risks like that. Watch how I say this. I did a swear word where I wrote most of the word. I wrote 3 of the letters and just axed out 4 of them. And I got a handwritten note from an editor in Arkansas where he highlighted that word, and there's an arrow drawn to it. He said, "If you ever do this again, you're out of my newspaper." So you learn over time what you can do and what you can't. But yes, you. You know, it depends on the day. You can get as few as 20, or if you anger Turkey, which you'll see in the show, you can get 2,000. So it all depends on what runs. People tend to write a lot when they're very angry. They're less likely to compliment than they are to complain sometimes. So yeah, if you open your box in the morning and there's 200 there, something probably went. Yes, in the light blue shirt.
Have you ever offended any other countries and Turkeys?
That's a good question. Who did I? Yeah,
Probably
Greeks.
France.
Greeks. Yeah. Well, the French are great. The French, I guess they don't read the strip, or they don't care when you make fun of them. But you can make fun of French people as much as you want in the comics. Greek people were more sensitive. I'm Greek, and I thought I could get away with it. And I think the strip was showing two Greek guys in a restaurant, and they dropped the gyro behind the stove, and they pulled it. The place was a filthy mess.
Oh.
I don't even remember the full script, but I do remember there saying the implication that Greeks are dirty or something. I don't know what it was, but to me it was just dumb. The other one you get, if you say gypsies, apparently gypsies is bad. I don't know why it's bad, but apparently it's bad. And if you put gypsies in there, all these groups write to you. If you make fun of Italians, you get a letter from the Sons of Italy or some Italian-American defamation. I don't know what it is. But they write every time. So, especially if you have them in association with a mobster. So, yeah. You know, when I see that, I always think, God, what kind of letters must they write to the Sopranos? You know what I mean? So, anyways, yes, you.
Do you get memorable hate mail? Do you save any of it? Because some of it's got to be pretty funny.
You would have seen it. There's a bunch of great ones. If we get this thing going, I'll show
That would be
you.
worth the book in itself.
Yeah, I have to tell you, when I started out, when you get that kind of mail, it really turns your stomach. It's hard to take. Nowadays, I get so excited. Because A, I know I'm going to put it in this show. And B, it's fun to interact and see if I can get them to say more stuff. So you'll see one woman that I did that with. So, yeah, it's fun. Yes?
I heard that you don't smoke. Why do you like to enjoy yourself with a cigarette every time?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. And this is not a real tattoo, by the way. I was at a bar last night and somebody gave me a temporary tattoo, and I thought it looked so cool that I put it on the bar. But I don't smoke. I've never smoked. I hate smoking. My wife Stacy smokes a little and it drives me nuts. So the question is, why do I do it? I do it for the same reason I draw myself as an unattractive, fat, degenerate. I think it's funnier when somebody's a degenerate. And to me, the cigarette makes him more of a loser. It doesn't make him cool. So that's why I do it. So, but I'm very conscious of it because I have a lot of parents write to me saying I'm encouraging it. I don't feel like I am, but I know that's a bit controversial. But no, I don't. I definitely don't smoke. I do have this. I got my hat. I don't always wear it backwards. I can put it on backwards. But yeah, see, I'm like Clark Kent turning into Superman. Yes. She said, when you get lots of mail, how do you find time to respond to it? So what I do, this is sort of giving away a little secret, but it's the only way I can do it. I have like 3 standard responses, because believe it or not, all the email falls into those categories. And I put the person's name in it. I mean, I do read the email and I do send it back, but I don't type the same thing every time. So that's the way it works, and that's been good for me. So anyway, that's my phone. I always turn this off. That's so embarrassing. That has to happen. I'm not going to take the call. I'm just going to turn the phone off. Oh, this is funny, by the way. This is my best friend. I call him the monkey, and I have a little monkey phone. They'll love that I told you that. Okay. All right, somebody else. Yes, you.
About how many people wrote angry letters when Brett suggested that Bush bomb 3 countries.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Okay. Politics is a deadly area, and everybody thinks they know what you are. Republicans think I'm conservative, and liberals think I'm Democrat. And I regret doing that strip because it gave away too much of my feelings at that moment. And you can get pegged as being a certain way. And I think it interferes with people's enjoyment of it. So I wouldn't do a political thing like that again. I thought it was lighthearted. It made a lot of people mad. But I don't want to be pigeonholed. I'm not afraid of controversy. But I don't want someone coming into the strip with expectations that they know who I am. Because then, I don't know. I think it changes their perception of the strip. That's my thinking. Yes, who else? You.
How did you come up with the character Snuffles?
Snuffles. Snuffles is the only character that I did not name. My son named Snuffles. My son Tom is my best editor. He's 14 years old, and at the end of every week, I show him the 7 strips, and I have him rank them, 3rd place, 2nd place, and 1st place. And then I ask him the terribly boring questions. When he gives someone 1st place, I say, so why do you think that's funny? And Tom always says, this is funny. And I go, no, but you gotta tell me why. You gotta tell me why. And he hates this exercise, but he has such a good ear for humor that he's great. So he named Snuffles. And I don't know where I came up with the look of the character. It's basically just a big fuzzball, I know. So it's hard when he has to hold something because he's got no arms. I regret the design when that happens. Yes, you in the green.
What was your favorite Pearls Before Swine series that you wrote?
My favorite is one that I would do. I'll show you if we get the projector. It's the one where Osama bin Laden visited the family cemetery, which was also probably like the most dangerous by far. I mean, the number of conversations between me and my syndicate. Like I say, they don't stop me, but they will call and say, "You really want to do this?" And the risk you run with at the time, not now I suppose, but with the Osama jokes was if anything had happened in the news, like that senator starring, I'm dead. I mean, I would look terrible. So it was risky, and then of course you offend the family circus fans. That I can take. I've done enough of that. But yeah. So I should say too. This question comes up all the time, so I'll answer it now. No, I do not have to get permission to make fun of the other strips. One advantage of my law background was that I knew that. It's called parody. You can parody anything you want to. So that's why I do it. So when I started, I didn't know any of these cartoonists, so I just did it. And I made fun of them. Now the problem now is I know them. So not from a legal basis, but from a friendship basis, it's hard to eat dinner at somebody's house and then be really tough on them after. In the case of Jeff Keane, who is currently the creator of Family Circus, he's the original creator's son. We have gone on these USO trips every year for the last 3 years, so I've sat next to him in helicopters in Iraq and Afghanistan, and so I feel very close to Jeff. That doesn't stop me from making fun of him, but it stops me from being harsh. I'll give you one example. In the early days, I was very tough on Kathy. You guys remember the comments from Kathy? And I had one series, it's probably the only one I sort of regret, where I had a little character named Dickie the Cockroach. So he'd get annoyed with people that talk too much, and he'd pluck their heads off in a very non-violent way, and he'd put them in a closet. And he did that with Kathy, the character Kathy, which is fine. But the mean part was that I said that her comic strip, now that she couldn't talk, became funnier. Yeah, that's sort of mean. So, fast forward a couple years, I did a series where Kathy, the creator, Kathy Guyswhite, was playing Naked Twister with a bunch of other cartoonists. Now, because this is her and not the character, I do need permission. So I got her number and I called her. I had never spoken to her before in my life. So I called and I said, "Hi, Kathy." I said, "My name is Stephan Pastis, and I do a comic strip called Pearls Before Swine. And I swear to you, 3 seconds of silence went by. On the phone, that's an eternity. So I sit there and I wait, and I hear, "I know who you are." And I haven't even got to the bad part yet. So then, I wish I had a recording of this, because what I said next, I think, was, "Okay, look, I got a strip coming up, and I don't know how to say it, but you're naked, and you're..." And she goes, "The character?" I go, "No, you." I go, "I don't really show it. I mean, I don't show anything, but blah, blah, blah." I'm stuttering, and she says, "Yeah, you're not going to run the strip." And I said, "Really?" And I said, "No one's ever stopped me." And she goes, "You're not going to run the strip." And I said, "Oh my gosh, what do I do now?" And so she goes, "Well, it's not running." So I said, "Oh my gosh." So I called the syndicate, and I had already submitted it. So the syndicate had to call, at the time it was about 200 newspapers, and get it back, right? Every newspaper by newspaper, editor by editor. So here it comes, the day it's supposed to run. It runs on a Friday, and it's a Wednesday. And I get a call at home from the editor of the Washington Post, which is a very rare thing. She had my home number. I don't even remember how. And she said, "I just got to tell you, the Friday strip is the funniest thing I've ever seen." Now, I had the Kathy strip and I had a substitute. So I said, what strip are you reading? And she goes, oh, you got Kathy, and she's naked, and she's playing Twister. I said, how do you have that? And she goes, we pull from the bulletin board. It gets submitted. All the newspapers do it. So I go, who has it? And she goes, probably most of the papers you're in. So I go, so it's still running? And she goes, yeah, it's running in our paper. So here we go again. And we had to call Kathy and say, look, we are so sorry. This got out. And she was okay about it. I don't think she was thrilled. But I'll say one last thing. So 2 years later, I am up for the best newspaper comic strip at our annual cartoonist dinner called the Rubens. It's our big formal black tie event. And the creators of the event thought it would be very funny if the presenter of the award was Kathy Geisman. Because they knew I had won. So I see her come up on stage and I'm thinking, man, if I won, I'm dead. So sure enough, they call my name and I go up there. Now it's just the two of us, this big spotlight and all these people in tuxedos. So she's not going to do anything there. But so she's nice and polite, I give my speech, but when you're done, the two of you have to leave together, and you go to a quiet little corner, and they take pictures of you. So this is her big chance. So they're taking pictures, we still haven't said anything, and she turns over, and she goes like this to me. So I lean down, she's kind of short, and I said, yeah? And she goes, I just got to tell you, I am so proud of you. And that's all she said. And it was so moving. Like, how can I make fun of her anymore? So that's why I think I'm co-opted. So we're friends now. It's a little rough patch, but yeah. Well, that's the story of me and the other cartoonists. Yes, someone who hasn't asked. Yes. My favorite croc strip. I was going to show you that one too. It's the one where they go into the wood chipper.
You said you might make an animation of it.
Yes.
I have two quick questions. Was the Pearls plush thing your idea?
Yes, they made Pearls dolls of rat and pig and zebra and the croc. And it was, let me just tell you, that is the hardest thing I've ever done because when you do plush, they need what are called turnarounds. They need to see the character from the top, from the front, from the back. And I said, I have one view from the side. So I spent forever trying to figure out how they would look. And I think they came out okay. Rat's not great, the crocs are pretty good. But yeah, so those are out. But yeah, in the back. Oh, I'm sorry.
In the world, you know how you said that you sometimes leave one of those fake generic mail messages for hate mail?
Yeah.
And they email you back saying,
Oh, I should tell them
have
that.
they ever come to your doorstep or something like that?
I've yet to have someone come to the house, but people have found where I live, and they send things telling me they're going to come to the house. Yeah, I'll tell you, okay, a couple things. Sometimes when I'm in the mood, when somebody writes me a really, really ugly email, and there's a lot of swearing, and it's so over the top, it's incredible. I'm talking about the people who must have been pounding that on the keyboards. I will write back, and what I write, it's me writing. I think it says, Dear Pearls fan, thank you so much for your support of the strip. Unfortunately, Pearls is so popular that Stephan cannot respond to each one of his fans. However, because you wrote, we will put you on a mailing list for additional Pearls things. This is my favorite part. Unless you provide a reason why you should not be placed on the list. So that will inevitably trigger the person to write more swear words. In which case, I send the same email back. I get really excited when I get to do that. Yes.
Well, I have two questions. First is, do any of the crocs represent someone you know?
No, I don't. I think all the characters are me to some extent. I mean, I think Rat is definitely me. Pig is maybe the nicer side of me. Goat is definitely me. I read a lot.
What about Danny Donkey?
I talk like the crocs around the house sometimes. Danny Donkey, yeah, I drink a lot of beer. Yeah, they're all me to some degree, I think.
And my second one was, do you really enjoy taking the other comics from the other characters from the comics in the paper and turning them into something evil in your own strip?
Yeah, I do.
Like when you had Alice standing on the pothole and Jeffy was
Yeah, you guys know Cul-de-sac. Does Cul-de-sac run here? Yeah, that's a great strip. Yeah, that was, I did that strip for, he has Parkinson's, unfortunately, and they're doing an auction. So they asked me for art, so I did the strip and then ran the strip. So they're actually going to auction that off. which is why I did it. But yeah, I did. You guys know who Ziggy is?
Yeah.
Because I get a lot of, when I get flack for the character saying something inappropriate, it gave me this idea, why don't people go after Ziggy? Because it's a grown man and he's got no pants. So I had the characters go on strike until Ziggy put on pants. And better yet, I called the creator of Ziggy and I said, I'm going to declare victory in this. Could you put pants on Ziggy on the day that I declare victory? And he was super nice and he said, yeah, I'll do it. So sure enough, on that day, Ziggy had a long pair of pants. Yeah, I've done other things too. I'm wondering which of these I can say. I think I can say this one. I'll do this one delicately. There's a strip called Sally Forth. You know what Sally Forth is? All right, well, I think that the husband is really kind of milquetoast, and he gets pushed around, and so I thought it would be funny to have him go to a hotel that Rat was working at.
Yeah, I bet this one.
Yeah, and ask to meet a woman. Are we good with that one? All right, so I called the creator of Sally Forth, who I didn't know, and I told him who I was, and I told him what I was doing, and he had a great sense of humor, and I said, is there any way in your strip, Sally Forth, that you could put Ted in a hotel that same day so it's realistic? And not only did he do that, he had Ted walking back to Sally, and Sally said, where have you been? And he said, oh, I was just asking for a favor from the concierge. It's a lot of fun when the other guy will cooperate with me. So that's good. Yes, who's been hanging their hand up for a long time? You, yes.
I just remember that one thing where in Family Circus. It's really funny because the strips are angled this way. I remember how there's a bunch of sunflower seeds scattered around the floor.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Like, who scattered sunflower seeds on the floor? Not me. Then your script, you're getting a nasty call from writer Family Circus saying that somebody threw sunflower seed on the floor and pale, pig and Rat just hanging over the edge, throwing sunflower seed down at Family Circus.
Yes, I mean, what he's talking about is I had Rat spitting sunflower seeds at the Family Circus, and Jeff Keane that day was kind enough to put sunflower seeds on the floor in Family Circus. And in some places where I run on top of Family Circus, it looked awesome. So that was very cool. I'll tell you one last thing on Jeff. This is sort of funny. I spoke at Comic-Con, and I know whenever I speak, the first question is generally, how are you allowed to do this with the other characters? So I told Jeff, I said, I'm probably going to get that question, and I am going to tell them that you're okay with it. But I'd like you to pop up wherever you're sitting and say you're not okay with it. So sure enough, the first question was, when you make fun of the Family Circus, it's like I set it up. When you make fun of the Family Circus, what do the creators think? And I said, well, actually, that's really funny because I know them and we're friends and they're actually fine with it. And Jeff Keane stands up in the back row and he says, screw you, Pastis! I've got one more question. What do you think? Yes? Who's had their hand up for a long time? Anybody? You? Who? You? Or striped shirt?
Thank you. I have two questions. Do you ever get any hate mail for the cul-de-sac and the manhole comic?
I got nothing on that. No.
And do you ever get any love mail for Snuffles?
Yes. The mail runs mostly positive. It's just when something goes wrong, it goes really, really wrong.
Oh, and just one more
yes.
question. How did Guard Duck meet Snuffles? And how did they come to be?
Snuffles belonged to the Crocs. And I think they threw them at Zebra. Zebra took in Snuffles, and then the Guard Duck met Snuffles. I often don't know. I do one of two things. I either ask my son, or I check the Wikipedia page. That's very odd, I know. Yes. Yes, one more. I know that's crazy, isn't it? When I went to Iraq, that was the most common thing soldiers asked me to draw was the guard duck with the big RPG. So I had to memorize how to draw it so I could do it. Let me tell you one story, since this looks like the projection won't come, and then we do the signing. But it usually closes the show. The biggest controversy I ever had, by a factor of 5, was this Turkish one. And some of you may know, but what it was a harmless little strip where there was a llama, and he was a diplomat, and to solve problems, he spit on other people, because that's what llamas do. It wasn't even the funniest strip, which is too bad, because I have to retell it every time I do this. But anyways, the name of the llama was Ataturk. And I picked the name because I thought it sounded funny. It sounded like Attaboy. I knew Ataturk had something to do with Turkey. I didn't know very much. And man, oh man. So here's what I find out after the strip runs. Ataturk is almost like Jesus. He's the founder of the country, but you can't make fun of him. It's a 13-year prison sentence if you use this narrative. So they take it very seriously. So the email started up in the morning, and what really triggered it was somebody wrote me, just a complainer, and I wrote back real casually. They said, this is so insulting. And I said, man, I don't mean to insult you at all. I really don't know who the guy is. Just like the sound of the name. Sounded like Attaboy, blah, blah, blah. That's exactly how I said it. That email was a setup, and it went verbatim on the front page of the largest Turkish-American newspaper in the country. And it showed how callous. I mean, I looked even, I think I said dude in it twice. I looked terrible. So, but here's where it got worse. They figured out that I'm Greek. And Turkish people and Greek people hate each other. So they thought I had pulled one over on them. So in comes the email. And they write it while I'm asleep and they're awake. So every morning I get to the computer, there's 300 emails. And they are the most violent, hate-filled things you may have ever seen. Talking about my grandmother and everything else. And that's where I first learned they can find where you live. They will tell you where you live. And I had to, there's an ugly part of the story which I won't get into, but we actually had to call the police. And what you find out from the police is if you buy a house and you put your name on the deed, anybody can find you. So that was a big mistake. So they found me. So I just hoped it would go away. We ended up having to write an apology letter. It's kind of a non-apology apology because the Turkish ambassador to the United States wrote to me demanding an apology. It must have been a slow day in the embassy. But, so that was by far the worst it ever got. But yeah, so that's my story. And do you all know that I was a lawyer before I did this? I did it for 10 years and I hated doing it. So I would draw at nights and on weekends, and in the hopes of getting syndicated, and lo and behold, here I am. But looks like we got a thing, just in time.